Hi, I'm Sean. I'm a voice instructor who does lessons via the internet, and I'm going to get right to it. Does Sam Smith sing higher than Normani on Dancing with a Stranger? No. They actually sing the same part. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Wait, though. When I listen to them singing separately about what I made them do, it does kind of sound like Sam Smith is singing higher, doesn't it? Why is that? What makes high notes sometimes sound higher or lower than they actually are? Without going into technical detail involving formant discussion and full sound spectrum, which you can read about in Kenneth Boseman's book, Practical Vocal Acoustics, if you like to get technical, here are 6 things about how someone sings a note and who they are that can affect how high we perceive that note to be. Now, these are just my own observations. I haven't done any rigorous scientific study or anything like that, and people's perception can be different, so don't take this as absolute. I apologize in advance. I'm going to be using some terms like placement and vowel modifications and these sort of things that we talk about when we talk about singing in a somewhat technical manner. But I'll put some links to some videos about them below because I'm just not going to have time to go into detail about each one and what they mean precisely. So these 6 things that I'm going to talk about are based upon 3 hypotheses. The first is that the more full a sound spectrum is in the lower frequency range with respect to the higher frequency range, the lower the note seems to be. And this is with the fundamental frequency, which is basically the sung pitch or the note you're singing, being the same. The second, and this is like French style here, because they count like this. Un, deux. The second thing is contrast. So what came before the note or concurrently with the note and contrast to that note can affect how high or low it seems to us. And the third thing is our expectations, which are based upon our experiences in the past, and I'll talk about that. So on to the 6 things that affect how high our ear perceives a note to be. First thing, falsetto-y or head voicey, basically more feminine sounding notes, seem higher than chesty or masculine sounding ones. And this is a key mechanism based on the shape of the vocal cords and over what area they're touching or not. I'll demonstrate this on a G-sharp 4. Now when you hear these notes back to back, this effect is going to be more subtle because your ear has a reference point of the previous note, so you hear it in chest voice and then falsetto right back to back. And it's like, well, of course those are the same note. But if you hear them in isolation, so you don't have that reference point, you don't have a point to contrast against, then this effect will come into play, I hypothesize. You. So in terms of the 3 hypotheses I mentioned, this would be a less full acoustic spectrum at lower frequencies, plus the expectation that falsetto and head voice are higher. The next 3 things, 2, 3, 4, that affect how high we think a note is, relate to the shape of the resonant tract. With a smaller resonant tract, there's less amplification of lower frequencies and thus a less full spectrum in the lower frequency range, generally resulting in notes seeming higher. So these 3 things are forward placement. When we place more forward, the notes seem higher, and this as well as the vowel modifications we use that can make the vowels more forward, such as the word the is an sound, but we can do the, which makes it a more forward sound, so the, and active. Vowel modifications also generally make notes seem higher because that's what people typically do when they sing higher, so it's what we expect. They modify their vowels, so we get used to it even if we don't consciously notice it. And I don't know if you noticed, but my eyeballs are moving here because I'm reading the script because I can't remember all this stuff. So if you want to sound like the high notes are easy for you, don't modify the vowels. And if you're able to do that, kudos to you. So again, active vowel modifications, especially to more forward placement, typically makes notes seem higher. Second thing of these 3 things, in terms of resonant tract, more nasality, nasal sound, is caused by the tongue being high in the back of the throat and generally the soft palate being lowered. And this decreases the resonant tract size, and this can make notes seem higher. Again, lesser low frequencies in the acoustic spectrum. A raised larynx can make notes seem higher, as well as unrounded lips. Alternatively stated, a lowered larynx and rounded lips can make notes seem lower. So this would be lower, and this would be higher. It has to do with the length of this resonant tract. I'll demonstrate on the start of Beyonce's Irreplaceable that goes to an F4 note, which is not particularly high. It's well within women's chest voice range and near the first bridge to head voice for most men. First, a low larynx, backward placement, less nasally chest voice, versus high larynx, forward placement, nasally head voice sound. To the left, to the left.
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 I really don't know why Beyonce didn't hire a man to sing this part like this. The song would have been even more popular, I'm sure, but maybe it's because it sounds terrible. I missed this when I started making this video, so we'll call it 4C, pharynx openness. Pharynx is the open area in the throat, and how open or closed it is affects how high or low a note seems to be. And this again is a resonant tract size effect. A more narrow pharynx from closing down your throat will give a less full, lower frequency spectrum. And so the notes will generally sound higher. So if you're keeping your throat open, the note will generally seem to be lower. 4C, so that would make it 8 things instead of 6. Number 5! Distortion can make notes seem higher or lower. Healthy grit distortion makes them seem lower by giving a more full spectrum of noise or sound in the lower frequency range. I'll demonstrate this on Hallowed Be Thy Name by Iron Maiden, which goes up to a B4. When the birds come to rain me the last rites! When the birds come to rain me the last rites! When the birds come to rain me the last rites! Straining or choking distortion, like the sounds we make when it sounds like it's difficult for us to reach a note, that tends to make us think that the note was higher than it actually was. And that's due to number 6. 6. The easier a high note sounds to produce, the lower it seems to be. And this is mostly an expectations thing, I believe. Again, this is all my hypotheses. So if you sound like you're choking, it sounds difficult and the note seems to be higher. Notes that are closer to the top of someone's range, either their chest voice range or their head voice range, generally sound thinner and seem higher than if they were sung by someone with a higher chest and or head voice range. And as I mentioned before, vowels that aren't modified when singing up high, that normally would be to make it easier around the register break, make it seem like the person isn't near the register break. So unmodified vowels tend to make singing seem easier and thus lower when you're going up high. One way to make your singing sound easier when going up high is to do some vocal cord strengthening exercises. And one of my favorites is the attack and release onset from the Vocalist Studio TVS methodology of Robert Lunte. And I'll put a link for that below. Generally, the beefier or stronger your vocal cords are, the easier it's going to sound to sing high notes with power. And it'll sound like you're singing a lower note than you actually are because it sounds easy. So just to blow your mind, because we already did that, I'm going to talk for a minute about low notes. Now, the easier a low note seems to be to produce, the higher it seems to be. So basically, the easier a note seems to be to produce, the more middle of the road it seems to be. Now, men generally sound like they're singing higher than women on the same note because those notes are higher in the men's range relative to the women's range, because men's ranges tend to be lower than women's. So to sum up, generally, notes sung by men seem higher than notes sung by women over the whole overlap of their ranges. Hence the Sam Smith Normani phenomenon. You knew I was coming back to it at some point. Boom goes the dynamite. Look what you made me do. In particular, if you open the link in the description below for Dancing with a Stranger, you can compare Sam Smith starting at 109 to Normani at 155 and decide for yourself if it sounds higher. And oh, by the way, they sing the same notes at the same time, starting at 2 minutes and 42 seconds if you want to check it out. Sam Smith generally does sound a bit nasally with forward placement and a bit whiny at times in a good way that fits the song emotionally. And when he sings Look What You Made Me Do, he sings look on a C5, which is a tenor's high C, in a falsetto-y head voicey sound. And then he sings What You Made on an F4 in what sounds like his chest voice. And Normani does something similar. She sings a breathy, falsetto-y look, and then she comes back into her chest voice for the rest of the phrase. And she doesn't sound nasally like Sam Smith or really whiny. Wait, hold up. You said if it sounds girlier, it seems higher, but now you're saying when a girl sings a high note, it seems lower? What? Yeah, it seems kind of confusing, right? So, think of it as where in someone's range we perceive them to be singing. And I'm not sure why I'm clapping here. For a man or a woman, when they sound girlier, with less connected vocal cords, or vocal cords connected over smaller area, they sound like they're higher up in their range. But when a woman sings the same note as a man, she's generally lower in her range, and we can hear that consciously or subconsciously. So it more comes down to where we think someone is in their range as to how we perceive how high a note seems to be. By the way, women's singing ranges are generally higher than men's ranges because, according to Ingo Titze, their vocal tract lengths and also their vocal cord sizes are smaller or shorter than men's in general. Okay, so another one I may have forgotten, and so we'll call that one 6B, is that when we sound whinier, we generally sound higher because we associate that whininess. It's an expectation that it's high. I don't wanna. And this also, I believe, can contribute to Sam Smith sounding a little bit higher. So let's just review, and I'll give you these 6 things again. There are other non-lead singer related factors that can affect how high sung notes seem to be. So that's sung S-U-N-G. Such as the melody itself, including what note or interval precedes the high note, and things we expect, such as a note near the end of a song typically being a high note, some note that you hold near the end of a song. The lyrics also affect which vowel sounds you could sing or modify to on a note without sounding totally weird or unintelligible, and these vowel sounds can affect how high a note seems. Effects placed on the vocals, such as equalization and distortion, can also affect our perception. Finally, there are the backing instruments and the backing vocals. If they're primarily lower notes and frequencies, for instance, the lead vocals may seem higher by contrast. Oh, and if you're interested in how high the vocals of a given song go, I've started a list of over 100 songs with the highest and lowest notes listed. You can find it in my vocal consulting Facebook page, although I'm also planning on doing a video on that in the future, so subscribe to my channel and be on the lookout for it if it interests you. I hope this video helped you begin to understand why you might have thought Sam Smith was singing higher than Normani when they were both singing the same notes, and also how you may at some point have been listening to a song you thought you could sing, only to realize when you tried it that, wow, that is way up there. Or you were listening to a song whose high parts you thought would be difficult to sing, and it turned out to be not that bad. If there are other things that you think I might have missed that can affect how high we perceive a sung note to be, please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to tune in for my next one, which will be called, Does Sam Smith Sing Higher Than Himself on Too Good at Goodbyes? I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you'd like to hear more about singing, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my Facebook page listed below, and thanks for watching.